several emails regarding our phone conversation and presented to that. So those are available at any time.
So anyone listening could put in a public records request to receive those emails?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. So what I had decided to do after having all of this information from the judge, from the county officials, doing my research, things you've asked our residents on your podcast to do.
Yes.
I sent out an email on September 13th at 5:14 p.m. Requesting executive session at the next work session. The email read, I will be making a motion for executive session of this Tuesday's work session. The purpose will be deliberation of future acquisition, lease, or sale of real property in Huber Heights. I plan to have an agenda item to follow that executive session. Councilwoman Burge had responded to that email at 8:27 p.m., and she had stated, I hope this isn't an effort to make public the negotiations going on regarding current acquisitions that were recently discussed, either at public meetings or on social media. She further stated, transparency on the perceived lack thereof is not an issue here. To make negotiations public puts acquisitions at risk and compromises our bargaining positions. Matt, I want to stop there because those comments, in my opinion, are ridiculous. Because
why do you say that?
To state that making this information public puts those negotiations at risk, I think not giving this information out puts the negotiations at risk.
Transparency.
Correct. We've already got a judge and a county administrator and a deputy administrator stating our city manager is already putting this at risk. And to have Councilwoman Burge come out with that type of language in an email and that wording is very concerning to me. She goes on to state, if the city attorney or city manager feels this appropriate, then I will support it. Recommend you send a note to our council advising your concern and get his advice about calling an executive session. Well, Matt, as a council representative, I can call an executive session at any time for anything that is legal under the Ohio Revised Code and our charter, and that is exactly what I did during that Tuesday's meeting.
So explain how, for those of us who may not understand how you're able to do that. How do you do the executive session? How was Mr. Shaw, council member, by yourself? Because I know there's been talk in the past where two members had to bring something. How can you do that?
Well, when the topic had come up, there just so happened to be an additional need that evening for executive session to discuss a planning commission appointment. So during our clerk of council's comments, I had requested time to speak. I had stated that I would also like to have an executive session to discuss the planning commission appointment, personnel matters, and also a executive session to discuss the sale of property within the city of Huber Heights. And I stated that was a motion. Councilman Otto seconded it, and the roll was called.
And then they voted to do it, and you guys went back. You discussed it.
That's correct.
I remember from the meeting, you guys came back out. The mayor explained that there was a decision made, and that was to grant 3 more months or take it to a vote, which is going to be on this Monday's council meeting.
That is correct. And during my conversations with the county administrator and deputy administrator, I had asked them very clearly, were you aware of the lease extension that was on the August 20th public meeting? And they had stated they were not. At that meeting on August 20th, if you read through the meeting minutes that was approved by council, it states, after discussion, the city council agreed to recommend that city staff bring this item back for further discussion at the next work session. Matt, that never happened. That item from August 20th was never discussed again until this recent work session.
Until you brought it up.
Until I brought it up.
Until the meeting from the Republican Club happened.
Yep.
That was put out into the social media world, wherever. And then there were some other things that happened, and then you brought it up to take it in an executive session, and then it was talked about again.
Correct. Then after that, it was brought back out to the dais. It was discussed that the same legislation, the same exact legislation from August 20th would be placed on this Monday's council meeting for a vote. And again, why it was not handled as it was stated, because it says City Council agreed to recommend that City staff bring this back. City staff didn't bring it back.
If I remember correctly, it was bring it back in the next work session or the work session afterward to discuss it. I haven't heard about it. I didn't hear about this issue until I didn't even know there was an issue until I went to that Republican meeting.
And my fear is that many folks who are going to be listening to your podcast are also not aware. And that, again, the transparent portion of that is very important to me, because this is one of our largest regional assets that we have to keep here. Very, very important. And I guess, Matt,
I think all of us, I would say a majority of the citizens in Huber Heights would agree.
Yeah.
And the police officers in the city of Huber Heights would agree.
And again, I think it's very important to state that, a lot of folks are asking, well, why am I sitting down with you and doing this podcast prior to Monday's meeting? And I think we're going to get into that, with the next, phase of information. Our city manager, Rob Schomer, had attempted to make contact with me multiple times on September 19th. The first one at 8:12 a.m., where he stated, "Good morning, quick question for you." He put in parentheses, "And in no way is this a setup or for any conspirators or evil purpose." Now, Matt, I've sent a lot of text messages in my days.
Right.
I don't know why in the world that information why do you need to state this is not a setup or for evil purpose?
That's a hell of a lead-in.
Yeah, I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's when most people say, hey, with all due respect, and they're about to slap you with their backhand. But anyways, the text message goes on to read, "As I understand it, there is a conversation between you and either the county administrator and assistant county administrator for both regarding the negotiations about the court building. Is it correct that contact was initiated by them, not you, nor did you arrange to have them call, in fact, to be bothered by enough that you wanted to inform everyone about it?" Matt, I responded back to the city manager after giving this a couple of quick moments of thought, and I said, "Rob, I appreciate your willingness to discuss this topic. However, I'm sure you will understand my hesitation not to answer further. Due to previous actions by others to railroad me and other council members, I will reserve this conversation for executive session." Again, Matt, as I stated, the first text message from our city manager to me led me to believe I was in the process of a railroad job. They're going to come after me like they have Councilwoman Smith, like they have Mr. Otto, and the fact that they want to attempt to come after me for, any type of issues regarding this is ludicrous. And again, which is the reason why we're sitting down and doing this podcast. Because as I want to continue to read here, you're going to see where it's set up, where in my opinion on Monday night, they're going to come after me for interfering with city administration.
Did you interfere
Nope.
with city administration?
Nope. I have several individuals throughout this process. You're going to hear that no negotiations ever took place between me and anybody within the county. The only thing I did was to do exactly what the people of Huber Heights and Ward 1 elected me to do, which was to do my research, be transparent, and stand up for them. And that's exactly what I've done up to this point and will continue to do. It is just my hope that others would have done the same thing, and that our city manager would have done the same thing as well, so we wouldn't have even got to this point. So I'll continue. Again,
Please.
as I stated, the city manager reached out to me several times. An additional text message from him.
Is this all on the same day?
This is all on the same day. Yeah, same day. He stated, "I do appreciate that. Understand my context is to address the county administrator about going outside of professional protocol and contacting another elected official. Something his elected officials should have done. a problem with other communities have had as well. It was just for my info, as I had someone outside of executive session inform me that I had spoken to them as well. As well, you saying the same in executive session, which is why I was attaching it to a conversation outside of it, for the same reasons you mentioned. Call me for a more informal explanation. Again,
Who wrote that?
that was the city manager to me in a text message.
Is council in charge of the city manager, or is the city manager in charge of council?
You know, Matt, and that's a good question, because in my 3.5 years being elected, and as you know, I'm running unopposed this year, so I'm going to have another 4 years. Last time I took a look at the organizational chart here in the city of Huber Heights, I work for the people.
Yes.
And the city manager works for me as a council member. And to have this type of conversation with a city manager via text message, obviously you can see my hesitancy of not wanting to reply, which is why I took another step to protect myself, because I seen and this is what I'm going to label it as the Huber screw job coming down the pike for me. So on that same date, September 19th at 10:03, I contacted our law director, Jerry McDonald.
Okay.
Regarding the text messages from Rob Schomer. Mr. McDonald stated that he had seen nothing legally wrong with my actions within executive session. Further, it was stated he understood my position on not wanting to communicate further on this topic in text message form. He had suggested that I send a text message to our city manager asking for those questions to be an email form. So I did exactly that. At 10:30 a.m., I sent a text message to Rob Schomer. I said, after further consideration, I would be happy to review your questions regarding this topic in the form of an email. Now, again, key word there, I said I would review. I didn't say that I'd answer. I didn't say I was going to give him a prompt response.
Okay.
He had replied back and said, perfect, I'll send you one. So
He'll send you one what?
I would assume an email.
Okay.
Because at 10:55 a.m., I received an email. And carboned on that email was Mayor Gore. Now, mind you, these text messages, to my knowledge, had not been shared with Mayor Gore.
Okay.
My phone conversation with our law director, to my knowledge, had not been shared with Mayor Gore. So Mayor Gore is getting this email at 10:55, and you're going to see in this email where my assertion of the Huber screw job against myself is coming.
Okay.
He states, good morning. I spoke to State Representative Phil Plummer on a number of topics, one of which included his inquiry on our progress in getting some answers/information from Montgomery County officials regarding the status of the Eastern Division Court in Huber Heights. In that conversation, he had mentioned the county administrator had contact with you regarding that topic. He goes on to state, it is well known the administrative staff of various political subdivisions generally do not correspond with other entities' elected officials regarding official business. In other words, leaving the politics to elected officials, not administrative staff. It appears that protocol, in parentheses, may have not been followed in this case. Now, mind you, I don't want to stop there. I had stated earlier in your podcast that I have had multiple conversations with city managers throughout this region. I set up a National League of Cities event. I'm a part of the first tier suburbs here in the Dayton area. So to tell me in an email that I should not be contacting administrative staff of other communities, that I should be contacting only elected officials, well, that seems to me that
Okay, so explain to me the protocol that he has in quotes.
You know, that's a great question. I'm asserting from his written communication here that this protocol that I haven't been made aware of is that I should only deal with elected officials, and he should only be dealing with administrative staff. But Matt, in the beginning of the email, he stated, I spoke to State Representative Phil Plummer. Well, he's an elected official.